Thank you. お久しぶりね。Long time no see. Welcome back. I hope you had a nice break. I missed you all again. Yes, I really, really did. We're like one big happy family with 500 kids. Nice big family. So I hope you've stretched your legs and had a little refreshment and are ready for the next session. So we'd like to begin the next session. And I'd like to ask Mr. Ikuo Hiraishi, who is the producer of this conference, to moderate this session. So let's welcome Ikuo and Khailee to the stage. Let's give them a nice warm welcome.
How's everything going? Floor? Must be tired. Okay, this session is on the theme of how to generate the powerful ecosystem of startups in Osaka. And to begin with, let me introduce myself because so many of you here don't know me, and then I'd like to introduce Khailee besides me after my self-introduction. This is the theme I would like to share with you, all of you here. How many people are actually attended first Hack Osaka, held in just 2 years ago? Raise your hand. Thank you. This picture was taken, I don't know, before the first Hack Osaka or after the Hack Osaka. But anyway, our keynote speaker, founding partner of the 500 startups, Dave McClure, and the Alan Miner, founder of the Sunbridge Corporation, and George Kellerman, he was a partner. He left company, but anyway, and myself. And every time I have an opportunity to speak for this kind of panel, I will show this slide with the phrase delivered by the Dave McClure. I think an interpreter translate this phrase to you, but I don't think it's necessary. You can read this English. So failure is not a problem. It's a necessary process to continue to succeed. I really like this phrase. And then, this is my second book, published last year, April. I really don't like this title. I didn't name it, but the editor of the company, publisher, made this title, Recommendation of Failures. And also, most of the audience are Japanese, but I would like to let him understand what I'm talking about. So let me speak in English. And then, this is my background. Now I'm managing the startup accelerator called Sunbridge Global Ventures. And I started my entrepreneurial life back in 1991, almost 24 years ago. And then I moved into the internet-related business back in the late 1990s. And the two company projects became a company. The one, Web Crew, which was started from the automobile insurance comparison website. I was not the CEO and president, one of the founders, but I was so lucky to get involved with. And when company went public. And the other one was another success for me is the Interscope, which is online research company, became one of the top 3 players in that category, and successfully acquired by Yahoo Japan back in 2007 February. And I was so stupid. I misunderstood 2 lucks as my true ability, and I tried third birdie. I don't know how many guys play golf, but those 2 successful exits for me is like a birdie for golf. I tried to make another birdie, but I screwed up and I hit the bunch of OBs and I lost almost of my balls. You want to play golf with me? Okay, in New York City, right? Anyway, I have learned lots of things, my failure. I'm not proud of my 2 exits, but I am proud of learning from lots of things from my failure and still living. That's my proud. And my life is focused on the change and innovation. This is my current positions. And then this is my philosophy, producing global challenges who create global innovation, which inspire courage, confidence, and hope to their society, hopefully lots of young guys. Okay, let's move on to introduction.
Well, thanks so much. Hey, how are you guys? Can I get a clicker? Sorry, I get a clicker from you.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay, hope you guys are ready. I've been asked here to speak on how to hack Osaka's startup ecosystem, which is kind of like an interesting topic that people have been thinking about. I think today a lot of the panel covered a lot of these issues. So I'd like to actually give you kind of like a different side of this story on how to hack ecosystems. So just to give you some background, 500 Startups has, in the past 2 years, has become the most active seed investor from Silicon Valley and also the most active seed investor in the world. So all that data was tabulated by CV Insights, ranking us at the top. But that being said, is that although we've kind of done a lot of companies, the more companies we do, the more kind of opportunities and challenges we see in different parts of the world, which excite us to do a lot more. We've managed to do that many companies because we combine seed funds, accelerators, and also a lot of specific community building and ecosystem building in different parts of the world. Our seed funds and accelerators combined have done over 1,000 companies across 50 countries. Collectively, these countries have raised over $3 billion. Our ecosystem building part of our business, we've compiled 2,500 founders within our network and have specific mentors, a network of 250 of them. And we organize about 50 events a year, attracting audiences up to 25,000 people. And these events happen in different parts of the world, but primarily in Silicon Valley. Now, this is a picture taken by Kayuza Minami, right, who Ikuo has mentioned to me as someone that some people know. I actually just picked this off Twitter, of our recent batch at Demo Day. A bit of a breakdown of all the companies we've invested in. You know, out of the 1,000 companies, 250 of them actually started outside of the US. Out of the 1,000 companies, 200 of them have women co-founders who own a significant share of the company. And out of these companies, 400 of them come from the accelerator. Our current team size is 50 people, and we're spread across 12 countries, and we speak over 20 languages. Our common language is actually WeChat, so we just use that app to stay in touch and communicate. Out of the 1,000 companies, we have one, we're still quite new in a sense because we started in 2010, so we're only 5 years old. We have one unicorn, which is like a code name for $1 billion plus company. We have 20 centaurs, like they've just made up this name, for 100 million plus valuation companies. And we've got hundreds of My Little Ponies, right, which is a $10 million US and above companies. So we're still young and we're still growing and still a lot to be done. But I'd like to tell you a bit about our relationship with Japan, and this is something that a lot of people don't know. We have primarily a lot of Japanese base of investors in our fund, from NTT Docomo to Yahoo Japan, Dentsu, Mixi, Big Globe, like the names are here. And on top of that, we also actively invest in Japanese startups as well. So Ikuo and I was just chatting about the startups that we've co-invested in together. There's 4 of them up here on the screen that we've co-invested in together. Those at the top of the row have raised Series A and Series B. So the Japan-only portfolio is actually progressing quite well. And this gets down personal. Japan's in our blood in the sense that our founding partner, Dave McClure, he married a Japanese woman, and they have 2 kids together. And Dave's kids speak better Japanese than him. And I first got to know Dave in Japan. We were on a Geeks on a Plane trip, which is one of the tours that he organizes for global investors to get to know different parts of the world, and that's where I first got to know him. So Japan has always been a central part to our strategy and central part in our company, and we always get very excited to come back here and see what more we can do. So as Ikuo has mentioned, we've been here for the first Hack Osaka, and then when they called me up, we met in the Startup Asia, Japan, I think, and he came up to me and said, "Would you want to come speak?" I said, "Okay," right? So at a heartbeat, we'd love to come down again. Now, about our topic today, this is not the first time we've heard governments trying to get involved with startups around the world. Building ecosystems. We see that countries from all different countries are getting more and more interested in this topic. Recently, we've been working closely with Taiwan government, and so they've decided to invest $15 million in our fund and across other funds as well. Right? We've got a program that we want to do with Taiwan. We also work very closely with Malaysia. That's where I'm from. And we work with the different government agencies there to run different programs as well. And there's a few more countries in the pipeline which we're working very closely with. So what specifically do we do with these countries? We first look at the complete funding ecosystem and we see where the gaps are. So this is just a quick snapshot of a very simplistic model of bootstrap companies to incubated companies, seed stage, Series A or B, later seed stage and more mature companies, and what kind of funding they need and how many companies you might have in a certain ecosystem. So we try to map out what the ecosystem is in that city or that country, and we see what the gaps are and we try to plug these holes. And the reason why some of these holes have to be plugged is that if you've got enough support, say at the bootstrap and incubated stage, but you don't have enough seed stage funding or Series A or Series B funding, they're going to go elsewhere. So it's as simple as that. When a founder wants to build a company, they want to get stuff done. If that city or country doesn't have what it is for them, they're going to go somewhere else. So why bother with creating a startup ecosystem anyway? What we've started to notice is that a lot of startups, especially in emerging markets, they're kind of like SMEs. A lot of the folks we work with look at them as SMEs. But yes, they're small, medium enterprises when they start, right? And they account for more than 50% of the GDP of any given country. Like I dug up for Japan, apparently 66%. The reason why is because these tech startups, they're like fast-growing SMEs. They're like really fast-growing SMEs, and they're the next MNCs that come out of these countries. So if we don't work today to actually build a lot of these like fast-growing SMEs to be the next MNCs, like that economy has a serious issue for the next like 5, 10, 20 years. So this is why this is like a global issue and not just an Osaka-only issue. It is a global issue. So with that, what do I know about creating startup ecosystems? I grew up without one. I spent 20 over years of my life growing up in Malaysia, and in Malaysia, I never even heard of a startup ecosystem. There's no established events. At the time when I was building companies, there were no established events. There's no incubators. There's no venture capital firms who are actively investing in these kind of sectors. Like, there's virtually no ecosystem. Everyone talked about Singapore. Singapore has everything. So a lot of entrepreneurs go down to Singapore and see what's going on. So I didn't have an ecosystem there. But I was 15 years old at the time, and my first memory is that I had this Nokia 3210 phone, and all my friends had the Nokia 8210, which was significantly smaller. So I wanted the small phone, so I wanted to get a job that would help me buy that phone. But Starbucks paid like $4 an hour, and then I could fold clothes at this shop. They gave me like $5 an hour, and I did the math. I can't buy my phone. So I decided to learn web design, because I heard web design makes more money online, so I became a freelancer, right? So that was my ecosystem. I just wanted to make some money, so I learned how to build websites. So eventually, I found that building websites was fun, and creating companies was even more fun, so I went ahead to build 2 companies of my own. I built a news company. It's like a social news company, not very dissimilar from BuzzFeed. We merged it with a few companies, and we listed on the Malaysian Stock Exchange with the help of Catcher Group, which is an investment company. I also built Malaysia's second largest e-commerce site. I did this with my co-founder Joel, and we built it up to second largest e-commerce site in 3 months, and then we sold it to Groupon. And then Joel and the rest of our team continue to run Groupon for Japan, not Japan, for all of Asia. Now, with those 2 things, it's interesting that people take a look at Malaysia and say without an ecosystem, it's possible to build some companies. But it's even more shocking that with such a small ecosystem of just a handful of people, it also boasts some of the biggest startup results in all of Southeast Asia. Now, 4 out of 5 of the largest tech IPOs in Southeast Asia are actually Malaysian headquartered Malaysian companies. The biggest funding round ever done in Southeast Asia in a tech company is one of our portfolio companies. They're called Grab Taxi. SoftBank invested $250 million, one check, into Grab Taxi. This was just a few months ago. And the biggest exit in Southeast Asia by acquisition is JobStreet for $500 million US. So when people ask me, Khailee, what are you trying to say with these slides? You're saying that we don't need an ecosystem? Like we don't need an ecosystem to build companies? Well, I say that, yeah, I think a lot of ecosystem-related stuff is very important, but there's one thing that's probably even more important than that. And with that, I'd like to actually tell you a story. This was a story of the time I wanted to abandon my country. This was in the first couple of months that I was building my company, and me and my co-founder, we said, okay, we're gonna build our site on Ruby on Rails. Because that's what all the cool kids do, read online on TechCrunch, everyone's using Ruby on Rails. All right, man, we're gonna build in Ruby on Rails, then we'll succeed, right? So that's what people in Silicon Valley do, so let's do it too. So we said, okay, we're gonna build our site in Ruby on Rails. We went to search around and talk to people, and we found that Malaysia has one Ruby on Rails developer, one guy, right? His name's Kamal. So we got in touch with Kamal, and I was like, Kamal, we're gonna build a startup. We're gonna use Ruby on Rails. We want you to join us. And he's like, no. so he was working with Accenture at the time, right, as a technology consultant, and he coded Ruby on Rails at night. So like, come on, man, it's gonna be fun, it's gonna be good. He said, no. And I said, okay, why don't I pay you to build the site for me? And he said, okay. So it was very expensive, okay, but we thought, okay, never mind, we take our savings. We borrowed like 50 grand from our parents each, right? Then we gave some of that to Kamal. And Kamal built us a site. And we were so pumped about it. We had this Ruby on Rails website, we hit it out there, this app. It was like a market research panel app. We rolled it out. And then on the first day, it got like a lot of users. And then we wanted to build new features. And we went back to Kamal. We said, Kamal, build new features for us. He said, no, I'm busy at other projects. So I was stuck there with an app, right, which only one person in Malaysia knew how to build on. And I didn't know where to go, right? So we said, okay, maybe we go to Singapore. Let's talk to some programmers in Singapore. Let's go on Elance. Let's look at other Ruby on Rails developers from India, from the US. We tried all our options, and we couldn't find a lot of people or afford a lot of people to work with us. So at that time, I was sick and tired of Malaysia. I'm saying Malaysia is a shithole. I'm getting hell out of here. Like, it has no ecosystem, no talent, nothing. I'm sick of this place. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go to Silicon Valley, and I'm going to build a startup in Silicon Valley. I'm done with Malaysia. That's when the next day I woke up and I said, maybe there's still one more idea. Maybe I can talk to Kamal again and brainstorm a different idea. So I talked to Kamal. I said, Kamal, I know there's only one Ruby on Rails developer in Malaysia, and that's you. But is there anyone else you know who's learning? And he said, yeah, some people are trying to learn. So there's somebody else called Aizat. So he introduced me to Aizat, and I said, Aizat, what if I pay you to learn Ruby on Rails? So you just sit in my office for 3 months and you just learn Ruby on Rails for fun. And after you're done, you can start building my app. You can use my app as a playground. So Aizat says, okay, I'll do it. And then I got somebody else I met at an event who was a PHP developer called Zumi. I said, Zumi, you join Aizat. I pay you, you sit down together, you just learn Ruby on Rails together. And so they started to learn. They started to build. They continued to build the startups that eventually became very successful for me. And this mini Ruby on Rails community, Kamal went on to be the head of engineering at Viki, which is a 500 startups funded company out of Singapore. Rakuten bought Viki for $200 million US. Aizat went on to become the first Malaysian developer to join Facebook, and he joined the growth and engagement team, which helped them get towards 1 billion users, and he was a big inspiration for all the developers in Malaysia. Zumi went on to work with us for many years. He's still involved consulting and working with a lot of the startups over there. He worked with another person to set up a new company called Bill Please, which we recently invested in as well. And this triggered not just the Ruby on Rails community to go out and be involved in startups, it also triggered a freelancer community of the staff that work for me and my companies. They went on to build for other startups, which recently got funding as well. And because we stayed in Malaysia, I continued to do a lot of angel investing after my exits in Malaysia. We invested in a company called iMoney, which is one of the front runners in our portfolio right now. They recently got a $4 million Series B. And also, I eventually got involved with 500 startups. And my involvement with 500 startups is we took I took the brand and the platform and I brought it to Southeast Asia so we can invest not just in Malaysia, but in all of Southeast Asia. So I think back a lot on that night I decided to quit Malaysia, to leave Malaysia. And sometimes I wonder, what if I left Malaysia and I went to Silicon Valley, right? Maybe I made even more money and have even more companies. I don't know, right? But I do know that because I decided to stay, there's a lot of startups which I mentor, I work with, I'm directly involved with, that as a direct result of me staying, like I think that was very helpful. So I just want to tell you this story because I think that in any ecosystem all around the world, it takes just one person to make a certain decision, and there's this ripple effect that will happen down the line. It's hard to measure, it's hard to track sometimes, but it happens. Now, the role of government. I'll tell you that the government had one plan, like a seed grant plan, and in Malaysia, the government is not very good at marketing, so they had this program to give seed money, but nobody knew about it. But we had a Ruby on Rails meetup with these programmers, and one government official came down to the Ruby on Rails meetup. It was at 10 p.m. at a Starbucks on a Thursday night. Usually government servants are asleep at this time, or with their families, right? He came down there, he talked to us, we thought, whoa, what's this guy doing? Like he was a bit much older than us. Then he was, just there trying to talk to us. We thought, what does he want from us? And that's why we were talking at first. But he introduced that. And because I actually went to apply for this grant, I got the grant money, which is why I could actually hire the people to work in my company. So I would say that there's all these small little things that actually trigger an entire ecosystem, and it's the start of something. Hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see the Malaysian and Southeast Asian ecosystem built to something a lot more. And you cannot underestimate the ripple effect of this one person's actions. People have been studying this. They call this the PayPal mafia. They map back like all the individuals who worked at PayPal, the first 200 or so employees, and saw what else they did after PayPal's stock went public. This is another visualization. Of course, the people who worked at PayPal, they went on to start YouTube, they went on to start LinkedIn, they went on to start Yelp, they went to start Yammer, all these billion-dollar companies, Slide. They want to start SpaceX, Tesla, went on to become the first investors in Facebook, eventually be part of VC firms like Greylock, and of course Dave McClure was also part of this group. He went on to start 500 startups. So it's just one company spawning so much more. So my message today is that an ecosystem may need all kinds of things, funding, mentors, and everything else, and that stuff is very important. But most of all, it needs you. It needs you and your ripple effect on the entire Osaka. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Khailee. I think it's all done. There's nothing to discuss with me. Huh? But otherwise, I'm going to be fired. So let me discuss a little bit. As we just having a casual chat at the back room, I think many of the audience are not really noticed about the score, as I mentioned to you. It depends on the currency exchange rate, but the GDP, gross regional products, I would say a GRP of Tokyo is about the 95 billion USD. The one of the Osaka is 38 or something billion USD. So approximately 100 versus 40. That is those two cities are the size of the economy, power of the economy. However, this is the crucial figure. The amount of the money invested startups from VC in Tokyo is, I would say, that as index 100. Which figure have been invested in the startups in Osaka? Can you guess? Less than 10. 7 or 8. Even though the economy, Osaka has a 40 versus Tokyo 100. However, the money invested into the startups in Osaka is 7 or 8 versus Tokyo 100. That is the reality. So the reason I introduced this figure to you is as Khailee mentioned, just this curly hair kind of weird guy studied the one big ripple effect. That's became a huge impact. So I would like to ask you much more about the Malaysia situation when you started your own setup and the transition to the nowadays. And also, I would like you to kind of make comparison between Singapore and the Malaysia. And I've never been to the Malaysia and any other countries except the Singapore and the Thailand. So could you explain the situation and from my perspective, Malaysia has far behind from the Singapore, as you mentioned, in terms of their kind of startups or innovation kind of thing. But how Malaysia and any other cities are competing with Singapore?
Well, I think that for Malaysia and Singapore in the context of Southeast Asia, each of these countries are finding their place in the global startup narrative. Because you see globally, like, okay, where are growth markets in the world? People talk about US and China, biggest markets. India is getting ready, you know, it's kind of very ready for a lot of investment right now. And people see this clump of Southeast Asia, which is presenting a lot of growth opportunity. Relevant for Japan, most of the ecosystem in Southeast Asia is actually funded by Japan. A lot of the VC firms, the acquisitions are all a lot of big Japanese companies. So what happens to Southeast Asia is that Southeast Asia is made by a lot of smaller countries. So for those of you who haven't been to Malaysia, it's a small country, 28 million population. And Singapore is even smaller, it's 5 million population. The big brothers in Southeast Asia in terms of population, you've got Indonesia with 200 million population. You've got like Vietnam and Philippines, you've got 70, 80 million. Thailand, you know, about 60. So each of these countries are trying to find their place. Malaysia in specific recently have a new government initiative, this agency called Magic, and it's an entrepreneurial-led organization. They actually hired one of the 500 startups portfolio founders, Cheryl Yeo. She had a successful company in Silicon Valley. She was part of our batch, our accelerator batch. The company was sold to Walmart, and so the government called her back to actually lead the entrepreneurial development efforts. And what people have been saying about her efforts in Malaysia is that what she's been doing in the past 5 months is more than everything in the past 5 years in terms of the relevance to entrepreneurs there. So I think there's signs of a new ecosystem starting in Malaysia. But that being said, it's nothing compared to what's going on in Singapore. Singapore, I think, had the benefit of having a lot of large organizations and expats use Singapore as a base for Southeast Asia for a long time. And the government there is very savvy, very proactive. They work not just with one agency and they use multiple government-linked companies and multiple agencies to go at a single problem, to build an innovation ecosystem globally. When you go on about Singaporean government and how they do it, like my mom's Singaporean. I grew up going to visit my grandmother for Chinese New Year in Singapore every year, and I'm very close to my cousins over there. So I kind of watch how Singapore evolve as well, and it's very, very impressive. So I think Singapore is doing a lot of exciting things, and I think Malaysia is just starting to try to find its place. Same thing for Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines, all trying to find their place.
So the other aspect I would like to discuss with you is as a word of the Southeast Asian country, but the reality is really fragmented, right? So, for example, the level of the economy is different, language is different, and the culture is also different, right? So, if someone originated from the Malaysia and set up their own startup and get a finance in the somewhere, you know, someone who is based in the Singapore, but they're only a 5 million population market, right? So, but the other guy from the Thailand or Indonesia who succeeded financing in Singapore, but how do they do their business entire the Southeast Asian countries?
So I think of two things when I think about that. One is like generally speaking, every country when you study it, obviously you want to launch something over there. You talk about market readiness. You want to see how much of the population has buying power to buy whatever you want to sell. You want to see how many of them are connected to Facebook, so you can advertise to them, right? Go to Facebook Ads Manager and choose the country and the city and see how many of them exist, so you can advertise to them. You think generally about a lot of these things. Generally speaking, people also talk about how maybe credit card penetration is not very high, and so on and so forth. But I think that's sometimes, you think too much in generalities is a waste of time. One prominent VC came to Malaysia to do a tour. And then they asked me, and they told me the same things. They said, credit card penetration too low, the country not big enough, don't have enough money, not connected to smartphones or internet enough, don't think it's ready for e-commerce. I told the VC, I said that 11 years ago in Malaysia, there was an entrepreneur who wanted to start a company and only wanted to sell it online. And people were telling him, credit card penetration 11 years ago in Malaysia, even worse. The buying power, even worse. Not even broadband connection, is the dial-up connection is not, that's just terrible. And you're trying to sell something online, you're crazy. But he said that, I agree with you, generally all of that's true. But here's an exception. If you make something cheap enough, Malaysians will run and line up and buy it. So he launched a company to sell airline tickets, only online, low-cost airline. It's called AirAsia. Now it's a multi-billion-dollar company. And so when he launched it, I remember as a kid when AirAsia launched, like we had friends and parents and all that, they would go look for someone who has a credit card and they say, hey, I give you cash, you go and buy it for me, right? They would go to someone's house who has internet, say, okay, I'm going to go to your house because I want to buy an AirAsia ticket, right? And people got credit cards. People got more credit cards. People got internet connections because they started to see a reason that it can bring a benefit to their life. They can buy cheap airline tickets. There are people, so the credit card penetration and broadband penetration was rising, not directly as a result of AirAsia, but it was part of that. Now, if you were to live your life obeying generalities and obeying all these statistics, like you just be a statistic yourself. You're going to lead a very general life. So I think the job of entrepreneurs and the job of very disruptive and innovative thinkers is not go around the world and look for generalities. You got to go and look for exceptions. You got to look, what is the exception to that rule? What is the one thing that you know that not many people know that you can exploit? And when you lead a life of looking for unique exceptions, you're going to lead a very exceptional life. You're going to build exceptional companies. You're going to do exceptional things. So I would say that you look at Southeast Asia and each of its markets, try to find an exception you can exploit, you can build a very, very big company. And this is why a lot of the companies that you've seen in Southeast Asia in the past 2 years that's grown very big, they're all very interesting in the way they've done it. And they all don't obey the generalities.
Thank you. Very good lecture. So we are running out of time. If we talk about their exceptions, as I mentioned, Osaka has a lot of the resources versus Tokyo, but can you imagine some exception which is going to be kind of super innovation originated from the Osaka? I know you have the only limited information and knowledge about the Osaka as well as the Japan itself, but if you have something.
So earlier when I was kind of jamming on this question with him, right, like I have a bunch of crazy ideas, so I just want to prepare you for it. So I was thinking a lot about not as much as we can think. I think about Osaka versus Tokyo. I think it's something in common with Malaysia and Singapore in a way.
Yeah, that's why I asking you.
Right, because like we're like we got this big brother country who has everything, who has have everything, and then people are just moving there in droves, right? Yeah. So I also think about the second city in Malaysia, they call Penang. Penang is a more vibrant startup community than Kuala Lumpur, the capital. So I think a lot about these things. So I think on one hand, we can talk about competing and comparing with another city. But I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about how globally there's different places in the world that you would go to. You would go there because of something unique it has. So I think earlier Don and a lot of the panel mentioned how, say, New York has a lot of the advertising technology base over there, and you're an advertising-related tech company, you want to go to New York. So I think about that, like, if I'm going to start like a global company or I'm going to start a company, why would I go to New York versus Osaka? Why I want to go to Silicon Valley versus Osaka? Why I want to go Singapore versus Osaka? I want to try to think about how any city in the world can build something that is going to be globally attractive. Now that's going to be very exciting. And we don't even think to talk about Tokyo anymore. I mean, like, just take Tokyo out of the equation, Osaka versus the world. What do you have? So that's what I think about. Number two is that then I start thinking about what are the global opportunities that nobody has owned yet. So earlier on, I think from the panel, we're getting inspiration from Ari, and she's championing a lot of women entrepreneurship. So at 500, we champion a lot of diversity in our company and in the startups we do, not specifically women. Though we have a 50% management team, it's all women, and we probably at 30-40% of employees are women. Where is the best place in the world if you're a woman to start a startup today? I don't know. I have no
question.
Yeah, I have no idea, right? Maybe some of you will know. Maybe I'm just too stuck in my man world to know, right? But it's like if so, where's the best place for a woman to start a startup? Where you've got a network of strong women mentors flying in and out, and working with these startups. You've got strong events, huge global conferences, and like how CES is in Las Vegas, right? Like who the hell goes to Las Vegas apart from, for tech, right? But then CES happens, and then suddenly you bring all these people there. You think about South by Southwest, right? Being in Austin, Texas, right? You think of a global concept that you can put to play to that theme of women. So other global opportunities, I think, so I think if you go along the lines of thinking of other global opportunities, of where's the best place to start X kind of startup, and maybe you could make Osaka that's one way to think about it. Now the second way to think about it as well is about what's in your hands. I think if we always try to play from a standpoint where we say, we don't have this, we don't have that, or we don't have enough this, it's kind of like very demotivating, and you're playing from a weak position. Why don't you talk about what you have? So if you see what Japan has, if you see what Osaka has, and what they have more than anywhere else in the world, and I don't know specifically what that is, if you go deeper into it, it could be quite interesting. Just for fun, right? Like I was jamming the idea with him, right? I think that one of the things that Japan has and they're kind of world leaders in is cute. It's kawaii. It's like the cuteness, the kind of from Hello Kitty to everything that you do. Now, my girlfriend, she watches a lot of YouTube, right? And she always makes me watch the videos she likes. So she's like, Khailee, you gotta watch this video. And it's the Japan Bunny Island. It's like an island in Japan where rabbits are running everywhere, right? She's making me watch the Bunny Island, right? Then the next week, she says, hey, Khailee, you gotta watch this video. So cute, so cute. It's the Cat Island in Japan. And then there's the cat cafe, then there's the owl cafe, the goat cafe, the penguin cafe. And so she's crazy of the Japan cute things, So she and her friends this year, they're planning a cute trip to Japan. We're going to go to the Bunny Island, the Cat Island, and all the cafes with all the animals. And she said there's also a fox zoo where there's a lot of foxes. They're like red panda fire foxes, and they're like these squished up foxes. So she got a cute trip planned for herself, right? So if cuteness is something that gets a lot of views on YouTube, cat videos and so on and so forth, and entire companies like BuzzFeed has huge vertical on cuteness, and Japan has been a pioneer of cute in the world. How did she take that to build something, to start playing off something? I don't know. But again, all these are just ideas of the kind of a thought process of, you want to do something for Osaka? Let's just put competition with Tokyo aside for a moment, and let's think about what the world needs now. And how can Osaka be number one in that? And number two, what does Osaka or Japan have that you can pull into Osaka to be one of the pillars of strength for its competitive position? So with those two ideas in mind, I hope this is a start of a longer conversation on how we can hack Osaka's ecosystem and make it great.
Thank you. We have only another 1 minute and 35 seconds, so I don't have any other questions to you, but if you have any comments or suggestions to the people in Osaka, please.
Well, that's a curveball question. Comments and suggestions. I think we gave a lot today.
Yeah, actually,
we took a lot of the notes, but I just want to share something that I noticed in the past 24 hours here. Now, so I think a lot of the people that you guys work with, they speak at different conferences, speak at many conferences, and today, like today over here, I tell you what I like, a few things which I found very different from the other conferences. I think today's conference was very focused. Like you guys had very few speakers, and you guys were just focused on a very specific theme. So it really feels very potent in that sense. A lot of conferences that we speak at, they just want to throw more and more speakers. It's like this pizza with all the toppings on it, and then you're biting into it because you thought there's a lot of value in that, and it just tastes weird. You're doing what you're eating, right? So this one it feels like a really simple and very focused, and that's strong. Second thing I noticed is that there's a certain warmth from the moment I landed and the people who've taken me around, your team has been doing a great job. I felt that every given moment I knew where I need to be, what's going on, you know. So there's a certain kind of hospitality. I'm not going to name out other conferences in Japan that I spoke at or anything, or other conferences in the world. But I think that if there's one thing that really stands out from what I've been experiencing is that you guys really care. There's a lot of people here who really, really care about Osaka, who really care about the experience of the speakers flying in, who really care about that the content of this conference actually makes an impact. And that is a great place to start. That's a great place to start.
We run out of time, but just one question came up in my mind. I think culture is really important in terms of your startups. Not only startups, but the culture is very, very kind of principle, right? So how do you see the cultures in Malaysia versus culture in Singapore? How those cultures are different, and what is the advantage of the Malaysian culture, the weakness of the Malaysian cultures to kind of compete with the Singapore guys or Silicon Valley?
Well, I think that's a good question.
Or what made you successful in terms of your culture?
Well, I think Malaysia, there is a lot of the other entrepreneurs who built all those big companies. There is a culture of us not needing so much support to do what we need to do. You know, so Patrick Grove, who built Catch-Up Group, you know, he headquartered a lot of businesses. He started a lot of businesses in Malaysia, and when he couldn't find funding, he went to list his company in Australian Stock Exchange. He's like, I don't need VCs. I'm just go IPO my company straight, right, in a different stock exchange. So there's this attitude that, okay, you know, if I don't have any help, I'm just going to do it myself. So I think culturally that element is very, very strong, a very empowering kind of belief system. Whereas in some other cultures, you're like, oh, you know, my country doesn't have this, oh, I don't have that, that's why I cannot succeed, you know. So there's a lot of excuses. So I think that's important. I want to do one thing though. Can I put on that slide of the end slide that was there? I wanted to put make my contact information available.
もう一回スライド出してもらってもいいですか？彼のスライド。
He's like, dude, I'm talking to you.
Give us another 3 minutes, for sure.
Yeah, just put on the last slide, if that's okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how different the Osaka culture is specifically from Tokyo, but something really seems more connected over here. People are generally more friendly. I think I don't know how that helps, you know, in terms of like making a thing.
Which slide? Which page?
It's the end, all the way to the end. Racing to the end. I'm racing. Boom, that's the one. So, as I mentioned, I think this is the start of a longer conversation. I think the ecosystem is not going to be built overnight. But the fact is that you guys start with so much care. I think that was the point I was trying to make earlier. Like, you guys start with so much care. I know something's going to happen. As long as people care enough to do something, that's like a really, really great place to start. Since they've given us extra time, that's it, huh?
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.